Happy hump day, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Before I get into today's video, yesterday I did upload the second installment of Madden 20 New York Giants franchise, so definitely go ahead and click the link in the description or the annotation above to check that out. But in today's video, I'm basically going to be doing what I did last week. That is my top 5 things to watch in the upcoming game tomorrow night against the Cincinnati Bengals. Number 5, Saquon Barkley. So now the reason I kind of phrased that as a question was because we really don't know whether or not Saquon Barkley is going to see the field Thursday or at all in preseason. Coach Shermer hasn't really given any indication whether or not this is going to occur. The only thing he did provide was a brief statement to Giants.com, basically stating Saquon's really important and we don't want to risk him getting injured in preseason, which makes all the sense in the world to me. Now, clearly Saquon Barkley is a once-in-a-lifetime talent. Obviously, I'd love to see him playing in this game because anytime he's on the field, there is a chance that something incredible can happen, just because of his sheer talent. But with that being said, also anything can happen on the field in regards to injuries. Our offense runs through Saquon, clearly, so the last thing we want is for him to suffer any sort of an injury in preseason. And realistically, Barkley wasn't affected last season by the lack of playing time in preseason. Last year, he was on the field for 4 total plays, and you know what happened come regular season time. So I don't think it's a big issue. I would prefer just to see Saquon week 1 against Dallas. Now, if the rumors are true and Zeke intends to hold out for that new contract and even miss games to do so, we need Saquon. Our offense runs through him, as I said, and that's a chance for us to get a big win in Zeke's absence week 1. So we need him to be healthy. So to wrap this up, I slated this at number 5 because realistically, there's a chance that we're probably not going to see him in this game. Shermer's kind of kept that under wraps, but the intrigue of potentially seeing him on the field is always a reason to watch. Number 4, can our young secondary make improvements? Last week I mentioned in the Giants versus Bears takeaway video that although it might have appeared that our defense dominated, if you just looked at the box score, if you actually watched the game, it's clear on numerous occasions there was a chance for the Bears to put up much more than under 200. I believe they had 174 total yards. If you watch the game, on several occasions, many members of our young secondary got absolutely burnt downfield. 2 instances that come to mind were both Henry Tolliver. His receiver gets several yards past him. He's just very lucky that Tyler Bray and Chase Daniels were throwing the ball and not an elite NFL starting quarterback. Obviously, going into this week, we do have a few injuries that have hobbled our secondary. Firstly, Antonio Hamilton, potential starter DeAndre Baker, and of course, paycheck collecting Sam Beal. I doubt we see any of these people in the game this week. Baker just started doing individual drills. Hamilton is completely sidelined in practice, and Sam Beal is worthless as always. So for me, the number one thing that I'm looking out for in our secondary is Corey Valentine. He has been incredible in both preseason games. Talk about a guy taking advantage of an opportunity. From the depths of watching your friend get shot and you yourself getting shot to potentially starting games in the NFL. A later round pick, no guarantees, with the injury to Baker and Hamilton, who were slated ahead of him on the depth chart early in the season, and even Sam Beal for that matter. He has taken advantage of this opportunity and he's not letting it slip away. In practice, he's running with the first team, meshing well with veterans like Bethea and Jornis Jenkins. So I am definitely going to be looking out for Corey Valentine this week. But without question, guys like Kenny Ladler, Henry Tolliver, as I just mentioned, and our entire young secondary. Definitely want to see if they can improve from that week 2 performance and move forward into week 3 against the Red Rifle Andy Dalton. Number 3. Who is number 3? Who would have thought coming into preseason, one of the biggest topics of discussion is going to be who's going to be the 3rd string quarterback? Now, I briefly talked about this in my review video of the Giants and Bears game, but I believe in week 3, as we know, week 3 being essentially the most important preseason game, seeing as cuts are coming, who gives the better performance in this game may determine who will end up being that 3rd string quarterback. As we know, it pretty much goes without saying, come hell or high water, Eli Manning is going to be QB1 at the start of the season. Daniel Jones, number 6 pick, add on his great performances thus far, clearly slated at that number 2 spot. So that leaves 1 spot. It's fair to assume that the Giants are not going to carry 4 quarterbacks on their 53-man roster. I mean, crazier things have happened, but I believe we can go off of that statement for this argument. So now the question is, who are the Giants going to choose? Well, we can take a look at our options here. First, there's Kyle Lauletta, our 4th round draft pick in 2018 out of Richmond. Last season, Lauletta might have squandered his 1 opportunity to start a game after getting arrested for a traffic incident. But the past is in the past, and Lauletta has looked sharp so far this preseason, tossing a touchdown in both of his games and having an impressive line of 9 for 12 for 116 yards in game 1. And then there's 31-year-old Alex Tanney. So now, Alex Tanney joined the team of May of 2018, and this, to this day, marks his 9th team he's been a part of. Now, Alex Tanney, essentially he's been a career backup, not really seeing any playing time whatsoever, but he has been everywhere in the league. I mean, as I've said, 9 teams in 8 years, he has a well of experience. And much like Lauletta, he has had a successful training camp, mainly in game 1, where he tossed 190 yards on 14 of 19 passing and a touchdown. So realistically, there's 2 ways you can look at this. Option A, the drafting of Daniel Jones sealed the fate for Kyle Lauletta. In this instance, the Giants prefer having 2 quarterbacks, one a multi-time Super Bowl winner and MVP, and the other, as I said, a journeyman who has a well of experience to mentor 1 young rookie quarterback. Or the Giants put the responsibility on Eli's shoulders to mentor 2 young quarterbacks, Daniel Jones obviously ready to assume the throne, but Lauletta being there as a backup if the Jones experiment doesn't work. In my honest opinion, I believe the Giants should probably go with option A. You drafted Daniel Jones at 6, the faith is there, let him try and lead this team, give him all the resources necessary with Eli and Tanney. And I'm not saying let Lauletta walk. Obviously, you have to either cut him or you could trade him. So now, personally, I believe Lauletta so far, and hopefully in week 3 and 4, shows that he has value. Maybe another team's looking for that backup quarterback, a young quarterback that they can develop perhaps. Lauletta can be available throughout this process, and maybe we can get a draft pick for him. I mean, is it going to be 1st, 2nd, or 3rd round? Most likely not, but he could be put into a package where he brings more value to us rather than just cutting him and letting him walk. But we really have no way of knowing what management is thinking, and we kind of just have to let it play out. But these 2 quarterbacks, Lauletta and Tanney, are definite things you're going to want to watch coming into week 3 of preseason. Number 2. Who is number 2? As I said in number 3, who would have thought that one of the hottest stories and most competitive races for a spot on this roster will be to back up Saquon Barkley? Who's going to be the number 2 running back of this offense? Week 3 is, as I said with the quarterbacks, going to be essential in determining who is slated for this role. In the NFL, teams need a good number 2 and even number 3 at sometimes running back to keep the defense on their toes. So even when the starter is not in the game, the threat of the run is still there. This is beginning to get really interesting in camp because the Giants, quite honestly, signed a plethora of young, talented running backs to be that number 2 behind Saquon Barkley. So let's break down these options that the Giants do have available. So first we have Paul Perkins. And I feel for Paul Perkins. So Perkins was drafted in the 5th round in 2016 by the Giants, and he had a really good rookie campaign. He averaged 4.1 yards per attempt. The next season, Perkins was slated as the Giants' starting running back. But early on, he had poor production and he was benched. And then to keep throwing it on him, that very next offseason, he had a pretty serious injury to his pectoral muscle, which had him gone for the entire 2018 campaign. But Perkins is back. He is back to 100% now, and after a poor performance in week 1, he bounced back in week 2 against the Bears, where he had 35 rushing yards and added on 30 more receiving yards. Now, second, there's Rod Smith, former Dallas Cowboy, who you may remember completely dominated the Giants back in 2017, I believe week 13, where he accumulated 160 total yards and 2 total touchdowns. Smith actually started game 2 of preseason against the Bears, and he was impressive. He averaged 4.2 yards per carry in that game, and he does have a slight advantage over the other options because he does play on special teams, and he's quite good at doing that. Then third, there's rookie running back John Hillman. So now John Hillman predominantly played at Boston College, but then did transfer for his final season to play at Rutgers. He is another local kid. I love the Giants bringing in so many local guys to give them an opportunity to play for their hometown team. So now Hillman was signed as an undrafted free agent, and he's impressed so far. From what I'm hearing in practice, he goes very hard. The coaches are very impressed with him. In game 1 of preseason, he did not run the ball, but he did have 2 receptions for 16 yards. But then in game 2, he showed he can handle a much larger load. He actually carried the ball 16 times for 56 yards and actually had his first career touchdown. Funny story behind that touchdown and the ball that he actually ran into the end zone, and I actually spoke upon that in my review of that Bears versus Giants game. So if you want to see that story, definitely check out that video. Then lastly, there's Wayne Gallman, the Giants' 4th round, 140 overall draft pick. Gallman had an impressive rookie season in 2017. He averaged 4.3 yards per carry and actually totaled over 650 yards that season. But clearly in 2018, with Saquon Barkley coming into the picture, his role significantly decreased, but was still able to back up Saquon pretty well. Unfortunately for Gallman, he is having a slight setback at the moment because of a foot injury that's kept him off the field. So these other guys that I already spoke on are getting more reps than Gallman as it stands right now. Honestly, every back has a case here. They've all had their moments to shine in preseason thus far, and this is going to be a really difficult decision for coaches. Realistically, I could see all 4 backs making that final cut, including their 5th back, Elijah Penny, who's a fullback. But I see them all making the cut in some circumstances. With that being said, I have seen how this new management of the Giants has handled anything from the old regime. So if there's anyone in this group that might be losing their job come the end of preseason, come September 1st, it could very well be Paul Perkins. As I said, Paul Perkins was a Giants draft pick, but that was by the old regime. And they're cleaning house as far as anything that was here before they took over the job. But, of course, anything can happen going forward. There's no guarantees, especially if Gallman can't get back on the field because of that foot injury. But in this game, week 3 against the Bengals, I'm definitely going to be watching those running backs and see which one of them can stand out from the crowd. And number 1, Daniel Jones. Of course it's Daniel Jones. What else could possibly be the number 1 thing to watch in any Giants preseason game. No one has grabbed more media headlines, more viewership attention than Daniel Jones, the Giants' 6th overall pick. Very controversial to some. In game 1, Daniel Jones proved what he can do on the field when he is at his best. Pinpoint accuracy, able to get the ball in his receiver's hands. He proved that. In game 2, he proved a different side of him. He proved that even when he gets beaten down, 2 fumbles in that ball game, he's able to recover, dust himself off. He is not afraid of the big stage. And I believe in game 3, Daniel has the opportunity to prove yet another side of him. At this point, you've probably all already heard about the comments made by Baker Mayfield. I even dropped my own video that got mixed reviews from, well, depending on which fan base you're from, you reacted to that video in a different way. But the scrutiny that Daniel Jones got from his peers, meaning other NFL quarterbacks, Daniel has that opportunity to prove his peers wrong, other NFL players. Game 1, he showed the talent. Game 2, he overcame adversity in game. And now in game 3, let's see if he can block out all of that media controversy and just play football. Throughout these 3 weeks, we have seen a complete package of Daniel Jones. We've seen his physical attributes, his mental toughness, and now the final test. Let's see if he can block out all of these headlines and just focus on football. As I said, what else could possibly be the number 1 reason to watch besides Daniel Jones? He may not be competing for a week 1 start. Some believe he should, but it goes without saying, all eyes are going to be on number 8 this coming Thursday against the Cincinnati Bengals. And I truly hope Daniel is able to show his talents, show he is able to block out any distractions, and prove some people in the NFL wrong. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. That is my top 5 things that I'm going to be looking forward to in the week 3 preseason game against the Bengals. Let me know in the comments what you guys are looking forward to seeing. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Like this video if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one, guys.